So you're back. You're back for another week. But this week, the podcast has been taken over. We will not be seen, but we will be heard.
No, I'm just messing with you. It's Haize. We're back for another week of The Awakened Soul. Let's get into it. All right, so we're in this main discussion topic this week. I don't even know how to start this one, right? Like, I'm usually so, especially when I have another guest, or like some of the more high concept things that I have, so like prepared and like how I want to intro it, setting the tone, all that. But with this week's topic, the fall to grace, and this one is a personal one, and it's my personal story. I think that I had that episode, I had the series of discovering yourself through divorce. I interviewed 3 people. It was Cliche, it was Cole from Cole Sports, shout out to Cole, and it was Hype Williams from the Denny Talks TV show. Shout out to Denny Talks and Hype Williams over there. And those 3 people, we talked about their divorce, how they discovered what they discovered about themselves and their partner through that divorce, how it made, in some cases, it made their relationship with their former spouse better by going through a divorce and parenting and all those different aspects of it. But somebody pointed out, who just recently listened to that, they were like, well, you didn't talk a lot about yours. You didn't talk a lot about the things you went through. You didn't talk a lot about the stuff that you discovered. And I think ultimately is because with my divorce, it went through, it was a fall there. And so when I talk about, and I phrase it, or I name this segment, the fall to grace, it's not just about divorce, but it's about how my fall happened and how I discovered grace through it. And we're going to define, because grace can be defined a couple of different ways, right? There's the divine grace that people talk about, and that is the grace of God. We're not really talking about that so much on this one. The way that the definition we're using for grace on this topic is the simple elegance or refinement of movement. We'll get into why we're using that, and I think it'll become evident as we continue talking about it. But I'm just going to tell the story of my fall, right? And before that, we got to set the tone of why it was a fall. So I got married at a very young age. I think I was 21, 22 when I got married. And so over the course of that, all right, getting married was like an ultimate high to me. Having my children, high. And at the time, I thought that I was doing, I was doing everything according to, in my mind, and a lot of people, what the picture perfect idea of family and success is. I rose up in my career. I started as my first salary was $7.72 was what I made an hour. And then I rose up to become a manager, assistant manager, general manager. And then I switched careers from that, going into I worked at an arena, over the food and beverage department, to moving into the corporate world, working at Edward Jones, in finance. So like, I'm looking at everything, right? And at that, I had the picture perfect, great career, making great money. I think I was a homeowner by the age of 24. And so all of this happened. And I was on a high. My kids were doing good. I had my 4 children, my 2 boys, 2 girls, everything that I ever said that I wanted, a spouse, everything. I was at what should have been my high, but I was unhappy. And so, and the reason why I say that, right, is because, and again, you guys have heard, I think I did it on one of my lives, or I think I posted it as the In Mind Haize segment. You will never hear me say anything bad about my ex. Just won't do it. So if you're expecting that, you won't do it. We both made mistakes, whatever, that's my nigga. But so you won't ever hear me say that. So that's not what this is going to be. But I ascended in every avenue that would typically make people happy. But when I look back at it, that was something that I put together rather than what God put together. And again, this isn't going into religion. The grace that we're talking about is not God's grace, but God is a very important, big part of my life, so I'm going to mention it. So I have this career, I have my family, I have my spouse, but there's something was still missing, right? Something even in that felt I guess a way to use it is artificial. And so I was also a deacon at the church, right? So everything, like, picture, if you just took a snapshot of my life from the outside looking in, everything would have seemed perfect. But it was artificial. I put it together, right? I forced that to happen in a sense. I forced it by ignoring a lot of the things that made me happy. I forced it by, for so long, like I said, I ascended to a career in food and beverage, up into a general manager, but I was never truly happy and fulfilled by that job. I was great at it. And so I felt that I should stay in it, right? But I kept being called to do something else, and I was ignoring that call. Like, and we'll talk about it, right? We'll talk about it. So there was a period of my life where, like I said, I had everything set up the way that the American dream would basically tell you that you should have it set up. But then the fall started, and that is, things started being taken away, and it started with my mental health. It started with me just hating going to work at a certain point in time. I had a great staff, most of which I hired, amazing people. Some of them I'm still friends with, and this is going on almost 20 years, damn near, more like 15. But we started, like, so the first thing I remember, the fall, like, right, I'm trying to stay on this concept of the fall. The first thing that happened in that job, in food and beverage, again, general manager, a different food and beverage outside. We were internal. We were one of the only major stadiums in the country that did their own internal food and beverage. A lot of they have Levy restaurants, sports servers that usually come in and take over the food and beverage operation for most of these arenas. Well, we weren't that. Well, once summer, I guess they decided that they wanted to take that out. The stadium wanted to take that off their books and do let another company come in. So Levy Restaurants came in, another food and beverage company, and took over that operation. They did rehire all the food and beverage staff. So it's not like I lost my job, but I remember because they wanted most of their own people to come in, and there's other companies coming in. They're based in Chicago, which is not that far from St. Louis. So they started having some of their own managers come in, right? They started coming in, changing things, which change isn't always bad. But I remember my boss at the time said, "Look, you're so much better than this. Like, don't get me wrong. I want you to stay working for me as long as you want to work for me. I love you working here. But I really want you to take this time out while this other company is coming in to really think about what you wanted to do." So I'm sitting there thinking, I made the decision. Now I'm going to stay. I'm loyal. I'm not going anywhere, whatnot. Not even 6 months after that. And the writing was on the wall, right? The writing was on the wall as soon as they came in that they were looking for a lot of reasons to remove some of the staff. Well, I remember the food and beverage operation overall, not just my department. I was specifically over liquor, but overall, from the restaurant that we had in-house to everything, just, it didn't hit, quote unquote, the numbers that they wanted it to hit, even though the numbers, I believe, were even higher than they were the year before. So they used that as an excuse to get rid of a lot of the staff, a lot of the management staff at that, because we weren't union. And so while I had been called to do something else, like, I remember I got a call for a casino after all this happened, and they were like, "Hey, we heard that you may be on the market, whatever." I was like, "No, I'm staying. I'm gonna ride out, stay at the stadium. I'm gonna go for Levy Restaurants." So I turned down the job, right? Paid more. I turned down a job that paid more out of loyalty and love for the company and the staff that I built. I felt loyal or duty to them. Again, stuff that I put together, right? Because that's how hubris works, and that's how our own ego and stuff get in our way. So I'm sitting here, and so that happens. The job goes away, and I remember I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "Damn, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" And I just happened. Never worked in finance before. Put in a job for Edward Jones, and I ended up getting it. But okay, we're still talking about the fall. That's the ascent, right? So so it started with that. I'm unhappy. I'm going to a job every day that I don't care about. That started filtering in to my children. Just me being short, me being tired as hell because I was putting in a lot of hours. I used to work like 13, 14 hours sometimes on game days at the stadium. And then my marriage. That affected me mentally more than anything because I wasn't happy in that marriage. But I was trying, we both, I mean, not just say me like I was the only one doing it. We both were trying to hold it together for our children more than anything. We're both two people that had our parents growing up from, my parents got divorced when I was 16, 17. But for the majority of my life, I had both my parents. She had both her parents. And we just, out of duty to them, we really tried to hold on to that. And then that started breaking down. Like, just not wanting to come home, right? Not that long drive was like, damn, now I gotta look at this motherfucker for the next however many hours until I go to sleep. And so my marriage started falling apart. And again, we're trying to hold on to the pieces. God's pulling away pieces. We're trying to hold on to those pieces with dear life or whatever. And so in the midst of all that, then I lose my brother / my cousin. He's more like my brother. Shout out to Terrence, which I've talked about here heavily. I'm not going to get into that because that is one of the things that does get me super emotional. Then I lost Terrence. And that, I think, was finally the breaking point in my mental to where full on depression, full on everything down. Like, I did not want to get out of bed most times. And so, again, I'm going through that fall. That then also impacts my relationship with my kids. One of the things that even my biggest critics praise me for is my relationship, how great of a father I am, how much I'm involved in my kids' life. Like, it got to the point where I was so down about everything about life, like where I was, everything. I'm still in this marriage that I'm not happy in. I'm in a career that I'm okay in. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm okay in, but it didn't leave me super fulfilled. My brother got taken away from me. My sisters had moved to California. I moved to Ohio. They moved to California to finish college. My first time being away from them and my mom, because of the way that we bonded together after the divorce, it was just us four, and we really formed a close-knit within a close-knit family. And so things just started getting taken away. And I started going through that descent, that black hole. I started becoming somebody that, for people who met me during that time, I probably was toxic as shit to them, right? There was a time where I didn't give a damn about who you were, what you had to do, what your intent. I was treating you like shit. I was treating people like whatever, because I didn't give a damn, right? I was so unhappy that now that unhappiness was filtering in through, well, not filtering in, it was being given or pushed back out to people who didn't deserve it. I'm sitting here going through my darkest place mentally, going through that depression, true depression, not the depression that some people feel, true depression, where I wouldn't say that I was suicidal. So I never contemplated taking my own life, but it did feel like I didn't want to be here. You feel me? I didn't want to be on this. I was over it. Keep in mind, I live for my children. So the fact that I was like, I did not want to be here. If God would have came and taken me away right then, I would have went, no questions asked, because I did not want to be here. This is where we're going through the fall. So then the divorce actually happens, right? And the funny thing is that I felt like I was at the absolute low. For a while, my kids lived solely with me. And then we started sharing custody. They were gone for a while too, and then they came back. Alan came first. Alana came back. You guys know the story. I've talked about it. So while I'm sitting here, and this went on for years, right? Even though I think it at one point it was its darkest, towards the end of it, it wasn't as dark, but it was still happening. I treated people like they were temporary. Everyone. There were people to this day, and I have not apologized to. I haven't reached back out because I don't really know where they are in their life right now. But there were people who loved the hell out of me, who came into my life probably with the best intentions, and that I treated like absolute shit, because in my mind, everything at that point was nothing but negativity. I was nothing but negativity. I didn't want those people around me. If you came around me with positivity, I needed you to go away. I was, they say, what's the phrase? Bad effect? No, I don't even. I'm at a loss for words right now. But so I'm in this place mentally, and I'm sitting here, and I'm in such a terrible mood day to day. like I said, there are people, and I won't name names. There are people who came into my life that probably have this terrible opinion of me because they came in a place where I didn't give a fuck. You feel me? You were around for what you were around for, and other than that, you could have left tomorrow, and I'll chunk the deuce at you. And I'm still like that to a degree, but not as toxic. If you gotta go, you gotta go. I believe everybody has their periods and times and seasons in your life, but it wasn't even that. It was just the fact that there were people who came around me because they cared, family, because they genuinely cared and they were worried about me, that then I treated terribly because I was going through that fall. Also, going through the fall, lost my dog. Shout out to Cody, who's my heart. Like that was like my third son. I lost him. And then I started losing, and not just losing, right? I started giving away possessions. I used to have a huge watch collection. I was handing it, giving it away. And it's funny now because like after going through therapy and stuff, like I think I was preparing for me to die. Like in my mind, I was preparing for me to die, and I was giving things away to people that I wanted to have certain pieces of me. Because I think in my mind, I was truly ready to go and hoping that I would go. So I'm sitting here. I'm using all of this. At the time, I was still doing the wrestling podcast. My brothers, this may be their first time hearing this, that they never knew some of the dark shit that I was going through because I covered it up. Oh, let's not even talk about the cancer, right? The tumor I had removed from the back of my neck. So all of this is happening within a condensed period of time at a time where just prior to this, I was at the theoretical high of everything going perfectly fine in my life. Everything being picture perfect to a degree. So because of that, I feel like God was preparing me, was saying, okay, you didn't appreciate what you had. You felt like you got to where you got out of your own will. You put that together. You made those things happen. You feel like you made those things happen. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you why you should rely on me and why you should kind of humble yourself. Took all those things away from me, right? And then I remember, and again, keep in mind everything that's led up to this point through my podcast, and go back to Get the Fluff Out, go back to Shake Shit Up, go back to all of those pieces of me, all those episodes. This is kind of the culmination of all of that. So while all this is happening, and I'm in my mind preparing, knowing that I'm sitting here having fun with JB when we're recording the wrestling podcast, having fun with Fame Black, whatever, Andrew Bello, having fun recording those podcast episodes, and they were truly fun, but in the back of my mind, I didn't even fucking want to be here. You feel me? I did not want to be here. The fall, like the people would have seen me and looked at my life from the outside looking in, thinking I was at, like, what did this man have to complain about? So as all those things start getting taken away, right? Taken away, pieces taken away, whatever, my mental health going away. I then sit back and I record The Awakened Soul, right? And it's just funny because The Awakened Soul, I always say what the title means. It means to enlighten and connect. And I'm sitting there doing that at a time where I didn't even fucking really want to be here, right? But I was called to do The Awakened Soul. So I took the skill that I had, and I'm working on The Awakened Soul, and through doing this and talking about different things that are going on in my mind, I'm building myself back up, right? I'm getting myself back to the happy medium, the people that have come into my life, the things that I've been able to do with The Awakened Soul, the talents in myself that I'm able to do, and I'm just looking back. And again, like, the reason why all this started, right, is because for anyone who doesn't know, and I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but follow me. Kind of the reason why this is on my heart and my mind is because I always say Haize is always best in the fall. The fall is my time of year. I'm at my best. If you look at some of my best episodes ever, they've happened in the fall. If you look at some of the best times of my life, they happened in the fall. So I'm sitting here thinking about the fall. I'm thinking about how happy I am. The fall is coming and everything else. And I reflect, you guys know I get in my reflective space. So I'm sitting here doing all this and going through it, and I'm just thinking about how I got to the point that I am now, where I'm truly the happiest I've ever been in my life. And not saying it started or it was because of The Awakened Soul, but it was because I started getting it out. I started really doing the things that were for me. For so long in my life, I did everything through the ideas of being a husband and a father and what I was supposed to be doing. Again, I put it together. I'm thinking I'm putting shit together, right? And so because I got so caught up in my own hubris, I guess God is like, I'm gonna show you real quick. I got something to show you. You're talented. You're good, but you're not using your talents for what I need you to use them for. So I'm sitting here, I'm doing this, right? And I remember as I'm doing the Awakened Soul, I'm coming out of my depression. Then I get a camera. I'm like, I want to start recording my episodes or recording promos for my episodes on video, which then led me to find photography, which then turned into a little side hustle for me and a passion. Like I love just grabbing my camera, going out and shooting, whatever. That went into video naturally. I learned videography, learned directing, and at the top of the show, I already mentioned I have this monthly gig now. So I'm working my way through all of this. And when I say the fall to grace, right? To grace, we define grace as simple elegance or refinement of movement. And through the fall that I went through those things being taken away, through the depression, through going down into that depth of darkness where I didn't want to be alive on this earth, it refined the way that I moved throughout my life. I cherish relationships now. You hear me mention AJ and Dan on drugs so much here because as much as, and this, shout out, I know Dan, well, I hope Dan is going to be listening. Let me not be cocky and just assume he's going to listen to every episode that I do. But I think Dan doesn't know, and I've said this before, Dan doesn't understand sometimes how what he does and talking through his struggles help people. And I am a testament of that. It's part of the reason why I am so grateful for Dan as a person is because seeing Dan talk about the things that I was afraid to talk to myself about opened the doors for me to just blow that shit out the water. I remember when Dan did his first that turned into A Few Screws Loose. Like it was an episode of a Black Law and Legal Lies. I can't remember the title. Was it I Am Depression? I can't remember the title. But it was like, damn, to hear a black man talking about that, and I'm sitting here struggling with it and going through therapy and didn't want to even admit that I was going through therapy at the time, was like, okay. And this is the impact of things that we do that we may not necessarily see. So, and I wouldn't have discovered Dan's podcast if I didn't get into podcasting. So the way that I started moving was different, right? I started moving with purpose. We talking about elegance and refinement of movement. I've always known that I'm good at this audio editing thing, and I'm getting really, really good at video too. But now the way that I maneuver, the things that I do, everything has a plan. And now it's because I'm moving with purpose. I'm no longer just doing what I think I should do, right? I'm no longer trying to uphold the ideals or visions or whatever that typical society would have you think is success. I'm still successful as fuck in my career, and I earned that. I work hard for that. Don't get me wrong, that you can never take that away from me. But through refining how I move and refining the things, the energy that I run around me, now I know true love. You feel me? Now I know what that actually is, not like a love through being fond of someone and having kids together, but through a love of actually loving people. And don't get me wrong, there's still, my mind is still I say it every week, a dark and twisted place. There's times where I see people like, and a lot of people I've helped in this game grow and helped them with their shit. But there's times where I just think like, this shit is terrible. Like this, I ain't got time for this nigga. Like shit like that. But luckily, the way that I move and refining the way that I move, it allows me to give the person time and to actually want to help and to like helping. But I would be lying if I didn't still say that I didn't have those thoughts. Like, is this really worth my time? Or I'm far from a perfect person. Like the things that go on in my head are still dark now, but now because I have true joy in the way that I move, since I have true joy in the way and the things that I touch with my hands, that it allows me to, I don't want to say I give grace, because I'm not at a position where I can give grace to any motherfucking body. But I think the grace that has been bestowed upon me, I'm now able to let that go through me and to be a vessel for that, right? To help other people, to genuinely love talking and interacting with people. Like I've never in my life been someone who does wellness checks. And I do this shit now to the people who I met through podcasting. Like that, I do to people who I've known for years too, but like people that I've just known through podcasts, and I send out wellness checks to, like, hey, I just want to, bro, you good? Like, that was something that a few years ago was not in me at all, because I didn't give a fuck if I was good. So when I say that, and I titled this "The Fall to Grace," it's the fall to getting to a place where the way that I move is different now, because I'm truly happy. And I got to that happiness by everything being taken away. And so it's funny, but like, because fall, I said it, fall is when I'm at my best. Fall is my favorite time of year. There's an energy that I feel when fall comes. And by the time you're listening to this, we're officially only a couple days from fall, but there's such a joyous time for me in fall that it carries me through winter. When a lot of people are depressed, I'm like golden, because fall is such a great time for me in so many different areas. And it's funny that you say that, and well, that happens, because I got married in fall and I got divorced in the fall. And the Awakened Soul started right before fall. By the time it had really got to a place of going, it was in the fall. So like, there are so many things in my life that have pointed to, and I'm not one of those people who follow astrology. I don't know when fucking shit is in retrograde. I still don't all the way comprehend what the fuck that means. But it really, like, it's just funny. And even me wanting to talk about it here now, like, when I say that I was such a negative person to be around at a time that all these people who like love Haize, Pastor Haize, whatever you want to say, that like if they would have known me then, I really want to know how they would feel. Like I said, I know I've lost some relationships that I will never get back. I don't want back necessarily either, but that I will never get back, because I was going through my fall and I was at the darkest that I ever been in my life. But now there are relationships that I've had and that I've built on my rise back up, that I find those invaluable, right? I value those so much that the value that I hold to them, the place that they hold, could never be fucking measured. And you know, I'm somebody who's sitting there saying that Dan, who I've never met face to face, in a way, not only saved my life, but made me reflect back onto something. Well, made me reflect on something that I didn't want to face at the time. You feel me? I did not want to face it. I did not want to face my shadow head on. And this is why we're preparing for an episode of shadow work. But I did not want to face that. I was running from it, like, so bad. But yeah. And when you say, like, the reason why I'm such at a place now where, if you hear me talking the Awakened Soul, if you hear me talking Love, Lust, and Badass Soul, where it's so easy. I always say it's so easy for me to cut out toxicity, because at one point in time I had to cut myself out in a degree. And once you can do that, all that other shit doesn't matter. Like, there's certain people who I don't ever want back in my life, but I know that I impacted them negatively, and so it's helped me refine the way that I move. Like, even if like, I know I just had the back and forth on social media, but even that was targeted. Even that, I knew what I was doing, and I knew the way that would go, that could go, before I sent out that tweet. And I just didn't give a fuck, because sometimes somebody needed to call shit out. And that is the part of refining movement. Are you ready for the smoke that comes with how you handle shit? Are you ready to maneuver, and move in a way that whatever smoke comes from what you do, that you're able to handle it, but you handle it with elegance? Can you do that? Anyone can slang mud. That's the easy part. That's why I always say being messy, and the people who have content about being messy, that's the easy shit. There's a place for it though, but that's the easy shit. But the harder shit is that the way that you handle that is reflective over the grace that sometimes been in you, but is reflective overall in how you want to move and be viewed as a person. I can say that I'm fine with that now. I can say that I'm finally at a place now where any and all smoke that comes my way, not only am I ready to handle it, but the way that I handle it will shock motherfuckers and make it be like, damn, everything is a drawback into it. And this is why sometimes when you're called to do something, do that shit. I say it all the time. Like, we fight the calling that we're feeling, whether you think it's from God, whether you think it's from a divine spirit, or you think it's just your own will. If you're called to do something, do it and embrace it fully, because that darkness that we all go through, whether we want to admit it or not, is the fall, but you can find grace on the other side of that fall. That's my time on this week's episode of The Awakened Soul. Yeah, I appreciate y'all sitting back with me through this. It's talking about topics like this it's not necessarily hard for me, right? But it's how many people do really want to hear about my life? Like, I just shit's still weird to me that people actually like hearing about shit that my crazy ass goes through, which doesn't make any sense because I'm really not that interesting. But yeah, I think also, before we go, we need to give the other definition of grace, right? I said that the main definition of grace that I was using was the simple elegance or refinement of movement. But let's also use it as, that's the noun. Let's use it as a verb. Do honor or credit to someone or something by one's presence. So just think about that. Do honor or credit to someone or something by one's presence. And, you know I played a voicemail a couple days ago, and I get a lot of, shout out to Chris Cozy, who's my dude. Shout out to like Steph from the Great Pill podcast. Shout out to my brother JB. These are all people who have somehow said that, me either saying something to them, doing something on this podcast has helped them make decisions on how they want to move forward. And that's not me. I can never take credit for that. But the same way that Dan helped me embrace therapy and helped me embrace the fact that I just was not good mentally, I'm glad that my content and stuff that I create has helped other creatives with humps. Tia is another one. She was out of podcasting, trying to figure out how to get back in. And I appreciate when they speak about me the way that they do. I appreciate the tweets. Never stop. I'm not saying stop it. I appreciate all that. But I think more so than focusing on whatever my words were at the time that made you think something or change something, I'm just glad of the relationships, right? I'm thankful that you guys hold me in enough regard that whatever I said, that you took seriously enough that it helped you, right? Because that in of itself is just grace right there. Not from me, but grace from them that they trust me that much, right? Because you can hear somebody say some good shit and still be like, yeah, that was cool. That was good words, and not really stick with you. And I would like to think, like I always say, that the Awakened Soul is going to be my legacy. Well, part of my legacy. My kids are my ultimate legacy and the things that I leave behind in their teachings. But, it's crazy. It's crazy. And this is the first time that I ever, I think, verbalized the fact that at a point in my life, I did not want to be here. I didn't. But through that, I have found my biggest and greatest purpose in my life. And people may hear that say that's crazy. Like the videography, photography thing brings me so much joy. And what I know I'm going to do with it here in the future, as we keep building. But yeah, man, it's the fall. That's all I can lay it at the feet of. I'm at my best when it's fall. The episodes that we got coming down the pipeline are going to be some of the best that I do this year. I can guarantee it. Just because of the work and everything that's going into it. But hey, what's your favorite season? Let's leave it on that. What season have you found is the best for your life and that impacts you positivity? I know for a lot of people, it's probably going to be summer or spring. Those are good ones. But I would love to hear from somebody who actually says, no, like I'm actually at my best in the fall. Let me know. But that's it. That's my time this week. I know I said that already and I started going down a different path. But that's it. That's my time this week. Let me know. Like I said, those things. You can follow me at CEO Haize. You can follow the podcast at Awaken Soul Pod or The Awaken Soul Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, theawakensoulpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave voicemails for your best time or things that you've noticed you finding grace through your fall or identifying your fall, you can leave a voicemail for that at 614-547-2039. We're the #1 podcast around. And this week, this is Haize signing off. I love each and every one of you guys. Peace.